We're here back in the Fantasy Bar, sixth place for you for week 9 on DraftKings and FanDuel, including a couple running backs I think you want to pay up for this week. We have a quarterback pass catcher pairing I am eyeing up here for week 9, a wide receiver I think is in the smash spot in the mid-range. And of course, my favorite play of the week. Who are we talking about? Belly up to the Fantasy Bar and find out. Welcome in, guys. Week 9 edition Beers Daily Fantasy six-pack. Good to be back in the Fantasy Bar once again. 6 guys fresh off the tap for you on FanDuel and DraftKings for week 9. Thank you, as always, for stopping by and hanging out in the Fantasy Bar. Before we get into the plays, you guys know the drill. Let's take a second, click that thumbs up button. Greatly appreciate that. Thank you in advance for that. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We got this video going on. My Pints and Picks video, been hot, 7-3 over our last 10. 2 of my favorite sports bets in the NFL each and every week. Don't miss out on that. And NBA videos multiple times a week as well, covering 6 of my favorite plays on some of the bigger slates. So lots going on here in the Fantasy Bar. Appreciate you guys for going along on this ride. All right, also, scoresandodds.com/beer, that link in the description of the video. Make sure you head over there and check it out. Tons of great information on that site. All right, let's dive into week 9. We're missing a lot of studs at some of the key positions here, but we'll make it work. Let's start at running back with Aaron Jones of Green Bay. Now, Jones kind of taking control here now. I know A.J. Dillon's not going anywhere, but I'm a Packer fan. I know how this works here, but it's good to see Jones be the lead in this committee here. 20-10 was that carry split last week against Buffalo, and Jones looked very good in that game against a pretty good Buffalo defense. Yeah, they can be vulnerable to run sometimes, but looked a lot more explosive than A.J. Dillon here. Also, the passing game. Sounds like they'll get Allen Lazard back this week, but I just think Aaron Jones is still going to be a big part of this. 15 targets over the last 2 games. That's led to over 25 DraftKings points a game. We know the Lions, not good defensively here. I think Green Bay really going to depend on their running game, getting Jones involved in the passing game. The Lions, 4th most fantasy points allowed to this position and the most rushing touchdowns. So yes, Dillon squarely in play as well, more so of a FanDuel play. Love Jones on both, especially here on DraftKings with that full point PPR. All right, let's go to the wide receiver position next. We'll roll with Tyler Lockett of Seattle. Now, as of this recording, listed as questionable here, I think that's going to help us out ownership-wise. And he's kind of in that dead zone of pricing where people either want to spend up or they want to go cheap. I think there's going to be some popular, cheaper options here. So a mid-range play, especially in tournaments, really can differentiate your lineups here. Now, we're going to get into the matchup here, but I always love to throw some fun stats at you guys, kind of mix it up that way a little bit. We know Tyler Lockett has had some big games against this Arizona team. In fact, last 2 trips to Arizona, we're talking almost 300 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns, a 2 and a 3 touchdown game against this Cardinals team. And we know Arizona has been pretty good against number 1 and outside receivers, more so of a DK Metcalf matchup where they want to take him out of the game. Going to leave Lockett kind of the work in the middle of that field. And the targets certainly been there week in, week out. 8 or more targets now in 5 of the last 7 games. This Arizona defense, 23rd in DVOA against the pass. We take advantage here. I think Geno and company keeps it rolling. Tyler Lockett, one of my favorite wide receiver plays here for week 9. All right, let's go to the quarterback position. Got a cheap option, going to give you some leverage here as well. We are rolling with Trevor Lawrence of Jacksonville. Now, let me make this perfectly clear. Travis Etienne, an absolute smash play here this week. Certainly understand why he's going to garner a lot of ownership. The chalk has been hitting week in and week out. Love what I'm seeing out of Travis Etienne. Could have been very easy to put him here in the video. So he is certainly somebody you should be playing a ton. But in some of your builds, so a way to get different here and get some leverage off of some of that ownership is to roll with the passing game and Trevor Lawrence. Now, I get it. It's been up and down. It's been ugly. There's been no consistency. But let's look at some of the best games that he has had. Those games came against the Giants, the Colts, the Chargers. Now, you look at their DVOA ranks, 24th, 20th. The Chargers, the best of the group, at 13th. Guess where Vegas ranks? That's right, 31st in DVOA against the pass. We know this is a bad defense. Hell, Andy Dalton had a pretty good game against them here. No team giving up more fantasy points to this position. Not shocking than the Las Vegas Raiders here. Take advantage of some of our builds here. Don't hate him as a cheap cash game play if you need to go that route, or even pairing him with Travis Etienne and getting a different look that way. So lots of ways you can go here. Trevor Lawrence, great value this week against a terrible Las Vegas defense. All right, let's pair him up now with Travis Etienne. Too easy. We're going to go to the tight end position and roll with Evan Ingram. So it was Christian Kirk early on really being the dominant fixture in his passing game, but Evan Ingram's really become a big part of this. In fact, 29 targets over the last 4 weeks, and the tight end position, as we know, really been a dumpster fire this season. So if we can get any kind of production, we're there. People were excited about Kyle Pitts finally doing something last week. We know I'm a Kyle Pitts stan, so I was happy about it. The point being, Evan Ingram has been consistent here, and this slate, we don't have Travis Kelce. We don't have Mark Andrews. So a lot of times you go cheap, you're competing with those guys. If they put one of them 30 burgers on the board, you're dead in the water here. Not having to compete with those guys, we just don't have the huge tight end ceiling. Could somebody pop off and put a 30 on the board? Absolutely. Our hope is it's Evan Ingram, but the point is there's not as big of an opportunity cost here going cheap at this position, and a good matchup as you'd expect. Vegas, we know, bad against the pass. We just talked about it. Bad against the tight end as well. Third most fantasy points allowed. Third most touchdowns allowed as well. I think Ingram keeps it rolling here in a cheap price point, especially over on DK at just 3,300. All right, back to the wide receiver next. We are going with Terry McLaurin of Washington. Now, the return of Taylor Heineke in the lineup is good things for Terry McLaurin. We saw these two jive last year. We're seeing it once again here this season. First 2 games back, he's targeting this guy heavily. 8 targets in each of those games, averaging almost 100 receiving yards and almost 19 DraftKings points per game over that stretch, and I think it's going to continue here. Washington, sure, at some point they'll get Dotson back. Maybe this changes, but McLaurin, the alpha in this lineup. Logan Thomas, barely involved. We're starting to see Curtis Samuel kind of fall off a little bit, and this is a better matchup than you think. I know Minnesota, 6-1, everything's going well. We saw DeAndre Hopkins really get to them last week. Is McLaurin DeAndre Hopkins? No, maybe not quite at that level. Still think he's a very good talent here. Minnesota, 7th most fantasy points allowed to this position. Bottom 5 in receiving yards allowed to the wide receiver position. Here, McLaurin continue to buy low here in a good matchup. And Washington pulls that upset as well. Terry McLaurin, great pick here this week in the mid-range against the Vikings. All right, it's time to take a look at my favorite play for week 9. Before we do that, we want to continue our Beast of the Week contest. Congrats to all of the recent winners. Very easy to play, free to play, and a thank you to you guys for your support here of the videos. All you got to do, get in the comment section right below the video. Make sure you've hit that thumbs up button if you have not already. And guess fantasy points on DraftKings this week for my favorite play of the week. Closest guess wins themselves a free week of RotoGrinders Premium. Chance to check everything out behind the scenes. All right, let's wrap it up. My favorite play for week 9. You know I'm as the Beast of the Week. All right, Beast time. Will you one more running back we're going to spend up here on Austin Eckler, this week's Beast of the Week. So Derrick Henry in the spot last week, smashed for us, 200 yards once again against the Houston Texans. I feel the same way about this spot for Austin Eckler. Atlanta just been handing out like Halloween candy these big games to running backs. Even wide receivers having huge games against this team. The point is, very bad defense. Deonta Foreman goes nuts against them. Last week, Leonard Fournette a couple weeks ago tore this defense up. And the Chargers, we know Mike Williams is out. Sounds like Keenan Allen kind of downgraded here in his rehab, so he's likely not going to be there. That's going to mean even more here for Austin Eckler in the passing game. So guys like Josh Palmer, DeAndre Carter, Gerald Everett, sure, they're nice value plays this week. They're certainly going to have a lot of ownership here. But Eckler, 22 receptions on 28 targets in just the last 2 games alone. So put him on this fast turf here in Atlanta against a bad defense in a game that we could see a shootout here. Atlanta 26th DVOA against the run. They give up a ton of fantasy points, as we already mentioned. Bottom half there. Also, receiving yards, receptions to running backs, bottom half there. So really checking all of the boxes here for us is this Atlanta defense. Spend the money here. Austin Eckler, easily my favorite play on the board in this week's Beast of the Week. All right, guys, that'll do it here for week 9, the Fantasy Bar. Thank you so much for hanging out and checking out the video. Remember, if you have any comments, questions, feedback, hit me up in the comment section right below the video. Don't forget, fantasy points for Austin Eckler on DraftKings for your shot at some free RotoGrinders Premium. And put yourself here. You're 10 in the bar. I want to know who your top play is on this slate. Who is your Beast of the Week? Sound off in that YouTube comment section. For RotoGrinders.com, I am Beer saying salut, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Best of luck here in week 9. Remember, pints and picks as well with 2 of my favorite sports bets of the week in the NFL, NBA videos going on. And don't forget, check out the DFS OG's podcast, Head Chopper, Notorious, and myself getting down every single week, every Wednesday, talking to Slate from a betting perspective. Go and check that out anywhere you find your podcast or here on YouTube. Thanks again, guys. Good luck in week 9, and we'll see you.
Hey, thanks for checking out our videos. If you want more expert advice on DraftKings, FanDuel, or any other daily fantasy sports, make sure you check out the current videos playlist